5,400 meters below the surface. Deeper than most submarines can dive, deeper than sunlight ever reaches. Something was waiting. For 77 years, it sat in complete darkness, silent, untouched, forgotten. This was not just any shipwreck. This was the carrier that helped start a world war. The ship that launched the attack on Pearl Harbor and then vanished without a trace. For decades, no one could find her. Until one October morning in 2019, when a signal came from the deep, and everything historians thought they knew was about to be challenged. Welcome to Deep Sea War Files, the channel where history doesn't stay buried. Now, before we go any further, if you are watching this right now and you have not subscribed yet, think of it this way. You would not read only one chapter of the most important book of your life and then close it forever. Would you? Hit that subscribe button, because every week we open a new chapter down here in the deep. And tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from today? Whether you are sitting in London, Lahore, Lagos, or Los Angeles. Drop your city below. This community stretches across every ocean, just like the stories we tell. On October 18, 2019, a research vessel named RV Petrel was moving slowly across the Pacific Ocean, northwest of Midway Atoll. Below it, an autonomous underwater vehicle was scanning the seafloor. Methodically, patiently, like a detective who refuses to give up on a cold case. Then the sonar returned something unexpected. A shape, a structure, something far too straight, far too large, and far too deliberate to be rock or reef. At 17,700 feet below the surface, in crushing darkness and near freezing water, the outline of a fleet carrier emerged on the screen. She was sitting upright, not broken apart, not collapsed on her side, upright as if she had simply descended, found her place on the ocean floor, and stayed there. This was Kaga, one of the most significant warships in modern history. A carrier that launched aircraft over Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, a ship that carried nearly 1,000 men into one of history's most decisive naval battles, and a wreck that had remained hidden for 77 years. Despite searchers knowing roughly where she went down, the expedition that found her was no accident of fortune. It was the final chapter of a mission funded by Paul Allen, the co-founder of Microsoft, who had dedicated significant personal resources to locating the warships of World War II. Allen had passed away in 2018. His team completed the mission in his memory. And what they found was extraordinary. Kaga stretched nearly 800 feet from bow to stern. Her single smokestack, feature unique among the 4 Japanese carriers lost at Midway, was still recognizable. Her armored hull, legacy of her original life as a battleship, had survived 8 decades on the ocean floor in remarkable condition. But here is what stopped historians in their tracks. Her position was not where the wartime record said she should be. Kaga had drifted, during her 7-hour death spiral on the surface, significantly further northwest than any historical estimate had calculated. That drift, of just 400 meters from the known debris field, had kept her main hull hidden from a previous search team for 20 years. In 1999, Nautico Corporation had found scattered wreckage, gun tubs, a section of hangar, fragments, but not the hull, because they were searching in the wrong place. And that single detail carries a lesson far beyond naval history. Most ships die because of what the enemy does to them. Kaga died because of what her own builders did to her, years before any enemy ever found her. To understand this, we must go back to a moment not of war, but of politics. November 17, 1921, at the Kawasaki Heavy Industries shipyard in Kobe, Japan. The keel of a mighty battleship was being laid down. She was designed to dominate the ocean surface, armed with 14-inch guns, built with thick armor plating along her sides, engineered for raw, brutal power. Her name was Kaga, But Kaga was never meant to become what she became. In 1922, the Washington Naval Treaty reshaped the world's naval ambitions overnight. World powers were forced to limit battleship construction. Japan, like every other signatory, had to adapt. And so the decision was made to convert certain hulls into aircraft carriers rather than let them sit incomplete and purposeless. Originally, a battle cruiser named Amagi was selected for this conversion, but nature intervened. The Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 struck Japan with devastating force, and Amagi was damaged beyond economical repair. Kaga, already under construction, was chosen as the replacement. And this is where the fatal compromise began. A battleship converted into a carrier does not simply become a carrier. It becomes something caught between two identities. It carries the strengths of its origins and the vulnerabilities of its transformation. Kaga's battleship heritage gave her an armored hull, powerful engines capable of 28 knots, and a displacement of 38,200 tons when fully loaded. These were genuine strengths, but her flight deck, the surface from which her aircraft would launch and land, was constructed from wooden planking, laid over her armored superstructure. As a weight-saving measure, at the time, this seemed like a reasonable engineering decision. Steel flight decks added enormous top weight. Wooden decks kept her stable and fast. And in the years between 1933 and 1935, when Kaga underwent massive reconstruction, nobody seriously questioned this choice. Because nobody had yet seen what happens when a wooden flight deck meets 4 American bombs. Between her reconstruction and 1941, Kaga was genuinely formidable. She carried 90 aircraft, including fighters, dive bombers, and torpedo planes. She participated in operations across China. Her pilots scored the Imperial Japanese Navy's first air-to-air combat victory over Shanghai in 1932. She stood at the center of the WWII, Japan's concentrated carrier striking force, the most powerful naval aviation group the world had ever seen. On December 7, 1941, Kaga launched her aircraft from 230 miles north of Oahu. Her bombers struck Battleship Row. Her torpedo planes contributed to the destruction of the American Pacific Fleet's surface strength. By every operational measure, she performed perfectly. And that is precisely the danger. When a system performs perfectly despite carrying a hidden flaw, confidence grows. Questioning stops. The flaw becomes invisible. Buried beneath layers of success and institutional pride. Kaga's wooden flight deck did not fail at Pearl Harbor. It did not fail in Darwin. It did not fail in the Dutch East Indies. 6 months of unbroken victories across the Pacific gave Japan's naval planners no reason to question anything. The flaw was always there, patient, waiting for the one moment when conditions would turn, and the weakness would no longer be hidden. For Kaga, that moment was exactly 5 minutes long, and it ended everything. There are moments in history that do not announce themselves. They do not build slowly. They do not give warning. They arrive in seconds and leave behind a world that can never go back to what it was. For Kaga, that moment arrived at exactly 10:22 in the morning on June 4, 1942, and it lasted 5 minutes. To understand what happened on that flight deck, one must first understand the situation Kaga found herself in that morning. The Battle of Midway was not supposed to go this way. Japan's naval planners had designed the operation with the same confidence that 6 months of victory had given them. The WWII, Japan's concentrated carrier strike force, was supposed to neutralize Midway's airbase, draw out the American carriers, and destroy them before they could organize any meaningful resistance. What the planners did not know is that American codebreakers had already read their intentions. Admiral Chester Nimitz knew the Japanese were coming. He knew approximately when. He knew approximately where. And he had positioned his carriers, USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and USS Yorktown, in exactly the right place to strike first. On the morning of June 4th, Kaga's flight deck was a scene of controlled urgency. Aircraft were being armed and fueled simultaneously. Torpedo bombers, originally loaded with armor-piercing bombs for a strike against Midway's land installations, were being hastily rearmed with torpedoes after reports confirmed American carriers were operating nearby. Fuel lines ran across the deck. Munitions sat in open positions. Aircraft waited in line. Engines warming. Pilots ready. This was the doctrine's most dangerous moment. The window between strikes. When a carrier is neither launching nor recovering. When her deck is crowded with armed and fueled aircraft. When her crew is exhausted and stretched across multiple simultaneous operations. Japanese strategists had taught the world to exploit exactly this kind of window in an enemy carrier. They had simply never prepared for someone exploiting it in them. At 10:22 hours, approximately 25 Douglas SBD Dauntless dive bombers from USS Enterprise rolled over into their attack dives from high altitude. The Japanese Combat Air Patrol, the fighter screen protecting the fleet, had been pulled down to low altitude dealing with earlier torpedo bomber attacks. The sky above Kaga was, for a few catastrophic seconds, open. The first bomb struck the forward elevator. The force of the explosion drove the elevator upward, bending it, twisting it, depositing it on the flight deck like crumpled paper. The second bomb struck the aft elevator. Same result, same violence. The deck now had no functional aircraft movement capability at either end. The third bomb found the island's superstructure, the bridge crew. Captain Okada, among the casualties, was largely destroyed in a single moment. Kaga lost her command and control in seconds. The fourth bomb penetrated deep. It reached the hangar deck, where 80,000 pounds of munitions were stored in various stages of being moved, loaded, and prepared. The secondary explosion that followed did not simply damage Kaga. It began killing her from the inside. The wooden flight deck. That weight-saving compromise made years ago in a shipyard in Kobe, ignited immediately and completely. Fire spread faster than any damage control team could respond. Fuel lines ruptured and fed the flames. Scattered munitions cooked off in chain reactions that no amount of human bravery could stop. For 7 hours, Kaga burned. Her crew fought with everything they had: bucket lines, fire hoses, manual flooding of compartments. Men who had launched aircraft over Pearl Harbor just 6 months earlier now fought not to win a battle, but simply to save their ship. They could not, at 16:25 hours. The order to abandon ship was finally given. 800 survivors were pulled from the water by screening destroyers. At 19:25 hours, destroyer Hagikaze delivered 2 torpedoes into Kaga's burning hull. She slipped beneath the Pacific at last. 814 men went with her. 5 minutes of exposure. 7 hours of consequence, and a lesson written in fire and seawater that no military planner, no business strategist, no organizational leader can afford to ignore. The most dangerous moment for any powerful system is not when it is struggling. It is when it is between its greatest strengths, fully committed, fully exposed, and completely convinced that nothing can touch it. Some truths do not disappear. They simply wait, beneath the surface, beneath the pressure, beneath decades of assumption and miscalculation. They sit in silence until someone is finally willing to look. In the right place, Kaga waited 77 years. When Kaga slipped beneath the Pacific on the evening of June 4, 1942, the world above her moved on quickly. There was a war to fight. There were other battles to plan, other ships to build, other men to mourn. The exact coordinates of her final resting place were estimated, recorded, and filed away in the assumption that the ocean had taken her to roughly where the battle had been fought. That assumption held for decades. It was reasonable. It was logical. It was based on the best available information at the time, and it was wrong by exactly 400 meters. In May of 1999, a private deep-sea exploration company called Nautico Corporation mounted a serious search for Kaga's wreck. They were experienced. They were equipped with capable technology. And they were searching in the right general area. They found wreckage, a 50-foot section of hangar structure, gun tubs, scattered debris spread across the seafloor in a field larger than the island of Manhattan itself. They had found the pieces of Kaga. But they had not found Kaga because the main hull, all 800 feet of her, was lying 400 meters away from where the debris had settled. During her 7-hour death spiral on the surface, burning, listing, drifting, Kaga had moved. Ocean currents had carried her wounded body northwest, further than any wartime estimate had accounted for. The debris fell where the battle calculation suggested. The hull came to rest where the ocean decided, and for 20 years, searchers trusted the calculations over the ocean. It was not until October 2019, when Paul Allen's research vessel RV Petrel deployed its autonomous underwater vehicles in a systematic grid search, that the distinction finally became clear. The technology was different this time. Side-scan sonar mapped the seafloor in overlapping passes, methodically, without assumption, without the bias of historical coordinates telling it where to look. It searched where the ocean said to search, not where the records said to look. And 400 meters from the Nautico coordinates, on an underwater slope where Kaga's hull had drifted during descent, the sonar returned a signal that stopped the entire expedition team. A linear structure, too regular, too large, too deliberate. When the remotely operated vehicle descended to 5,400 meters and its cameras finally resolved the image, there she was, sitting upright perfectly, hauntingly upright, as if she had chosen her resting place with intention. As if, after 7 hours of fire and chaos and catastrophic destruction, she had finally found stillness, her single smokestack, still recognizable after 77 years in absolute darkness. Her armored hull, the legacy of her battleship origins, remarkably intact. Her forward elevator, still showing the violent upward damage consistent with that first bomb strike at 10:22 on June 4, 1942. The forensic evidence was overwhelming, her length measured within 2% accuracy of historical records. Her starboard island structure remained in the position consistent with Imperial Japanese Navy design standards. Her 200mm anti-aircraft gun positions were identifiable despite decades of corrosion. Her battleship origin armor belt. Those 203mm plates were still visible along her hull. In October 2019, the Japanese government officially designated the wreck as a war grave. 814 men finally had exact coordinates, not approximate, not estimated, not somewhere in that general area of the Pacific. Exact, but beyond the closure, beyond the historical confirmation. Kaga's final resting position revealed something that quietly corrected the official record. She had drifted further northwest than any account had documented. This was not a dramatic revelation. It did not rewrite the outcome of Midway. It did not change the names of the commanders or the sequence of the bombs. But it revealed something precise and important. That a mortally wounded system does not stop where it was last seen fighting. It drifts, carried by forces no one fully accounted for. Further than any estimate predicted, coming to rest in a place that only patient, assumption-free, methodical searching could ever find. The 77-year silence of Kaga teaches one of the most uncomfortable lessons available to any serious decision-maker. Being close is not the same as being correct. Searching with confidence is not the same as searching in the right place. And the most significant truths hidden inside any failed system will never be found by those who trust their assumptions more than they trust the evidence. Kaga did not hide from the world. The world simply kept looking in the wrong coordinates.